Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Profitable Home Services Podcast. I am so excited to bring you some more wonderful information to help your home services business become more profitable. Today, our guest is Dan Dowdy from Built for the Trades. And Dan and I were having this really great conversation offline before I hit the record button. So we're just going to continue that conversation around the topic of I have a team. How can I help them grow and become an A player or a 5-star player, that type of thing? Because so often we're saddled with a team. We've chose them, right, wrong, or otherwise. We've hired them, so it's on us. We've hired them, and now we feel like we're running an adult daycare center. And that is a recipe for burnout, a recipe for chaos, a recipe for not loving your business. So with that, welcome, Dan, to the podcast.
Thank you, Diane. Yeah, I'm excited to be here and honored. And my response to that is that people are a product of our leadership. So I'm sure your audience doesn't want to hear that right off the bat, but we can talk more about that.
No, they probably wish you would have saved that for later.
Hopefully, not turning it off now. But no, this is really a great topic because we all, as business owners, want to lead leaders, and leadership's not a position; it's who we are as a person. And being a leader is being an independent thinker, somebody who can think, make decisions, own those decisions. And so many times we find ourselves starting a business, growing a business, and we look up and we realize we have a bunch of followers. Everybody here is dependent on us, and why is that happening in our business? So, we can dive into that as well today. So.
I think oftentimes they look back at when they were a 1 or a 2 or a 3-person operation, and they find themselves thinking life was so much easier back then. Yeah, I wasn't making as much money as I make now, but boy, life was easier. Now I've got 10, 15, 20, 30, 40, whatever employees, and nobody taught me as that business owner how to lead this kind of a group of people. I know how to go put in, whether it's plumbing, HVAC, electrical, roofing. I know how to do that stuff. But nobody taught me how to step into a CEO role and now lead a team. And that is where I think they're struggling so often. So how can we give them some tidbits, little words of wisdom when it comes to their team?
Well, the first thing is it's a lot easier to answer the phone and answer stupid questions for 3 people than it is for 10 or 20 people. So first and foremost, when we're leading a team of 3 or 4 people and they're calling us all the time and saying, "Hey boss, you got a minute? I need to ask you a question about this." We can manage that. We have the capacity to be able to do that. But when you start to add more and more team members, you realize that you don't have the capacity to answer those type of questions. And at the end of the day, your team members, they really just want to know that, that they are doing a good job. So the first thing we got to do as business owners is define what a good job looks like. And the way that we would do that is to sit down and understand, what position they're in, and writing a simple position agreement, 1 or 2-page document that has their job responsibilities in it. Something as simple as that can be such a foundational tool to not only give them clarity on what's expected of them, but also if we ever need to hold them accountable, we have a tool that we can go back to and refer back to time and time again.
Sounds like that tool is a great way to set some expectations. Working for me, here's my minimum expectation. You're good, better, best, but here's where that minimum bar is. And if we can't hit that minimum, then we need to be working on whatever area is causing that weakness.
Yeah, that's very true. And it is. Yeah, like here's the document here's what it takes to keep your job here. But on top of that, whenever people are a product of our leadership. So we like to be problem solvers. We like to fix things. Like most trades business owners started as technicians. And so if we continue to be technicians and we don't get put on that business owner hat or manager hat, we're always going to be fixing problems for everybody. So now we're not just fixing problems for the customer, we're fixing problems for everybody that works for us. And there's this endorphin rush we get when we do that. The problem is every time we fix we fix a problem for one of our team members, we are telling that team member to come back to us and depend on us every time they have a problem, even if they know the answer to that problem. And so as a business coach, that's where I like to define the difference between training somebody and actually coaching somebody else. See, training somebody is telling somebody something for the first time. If one of my team members calls me and says, "Hey boss, I had this situation, I don't really understand, I've never experienced it before," that's the opportunity for you to teach them how to do it, right? But if they're calling you saying, "Hey boss, I know I've done this 100 times, but I'm looking at this situation, what do you think I should do?" If we continue to train them or tell them what to do in that moment, they're always going to be dependent on us. So as a coach, we want to switch from training them or telling them what to do to actually coaching them, which the difference is just responding with the question, what do you think you should do in this situation? I trust you to make that decision. Next time, don't even call me on this. I know that you can make this, make that decision for yourself. And all you're doing in the process is just building up independent thinkers and people that can make decisions on your team. I know it sounds really simple, but responding, with the question and getting them to answer it is, as soon as they verbalize that, that is them taking ownership over whatever decision they are making in that moment.
I think you hit on a real key item there of I trust you to make the right decision. When's the last time we have said that to our team when they come at us with a question? I think so often we're busy, the phone's ringing, we're on the run, we're probably in the truck driving as we're talking to them. We might be in the office, who knows? But you've got 13 other things happening. Here comes that call, and it's too easy to just, the words come out of your mouth, we'll just do this, and you're on to the next thing, and there's no thought into it because that muscle memory says, just do this and it's fixed. And that didn't help them at all. But if we can get to the point where we can actually trust their decisions because you've been coaching them all along, you've got a completely different person as your team member. And that's a pretty cool concept, that one I think we need to pay a lot of attention to is, I trust your judgment. I know that you know how to do this and I trust you. Because I would say most employees out there probably don't feel that their bosses trust them.
Yeah. I mean, and you're right about that. And, people listening just got to think, how many times do you not answer your phone? Because you're busy, and then you call that person back 5 minutes later. And what do they say? "Oh, I got to figure it out already.
I figured it out." Right.
I figured it out. So when you have to figure it out, you'll figure it out. But yeah, the team members knowing that they're valued and knowing that they're trusted is really important. And trust is an important word, because it's not just, people think of the word trust and they think of honesty or integrity, and that's only a small piece of it. I mean, trust is doing what you say you're going to do and doing it consistently.
Even when I'm not watching as the owner.
Yeah. And so John Maxwell says it best. He's like, every person that I lead, the first thing I do is I put a 10 on their forehead, as far as I trust them a 10. From 1 to 10, 10 being the most, I trust them a 10. And until they prove otherwise, and that number goes down, I'm gonna have that kind of trust in them. And so if they do something that causes me to lose that trust, and say that number goes down to a 6, then my job as their leader is to sit down with them and have that conversation sooner than later. Because what you don't want to do is you don't want to let it build up over time to where now you only trust them a 2. They still work for you. You trust them a 2, and you're having to do everything for them. I mean, this is such a common problem in trades businesses. And just like we started, right? Like, you reach a certain point of capacity to where you're sitting back wondering why you're even doing what you're doing anymore, because you're so miserable, because you're doing everything for everybody on your team.
Right. So what are some of the steps that a home service business owner could take to start coaching their employees into becoming a 10 if they've slipped from a 10 down to, say, a 6? What are some of the things they can do?
Yeah. So the first thing, and this has probably been said a few times, and it's probably common knowledge, but When it comes to building trust is doing things consistently. I always recommend at the minimum a monthly one-to-one sit down with your team members. So giving them space to have a conversation with you, for them to be able to ask you questions, but also for you to be able to address their performance and letting them know where they, if they're doing a good job or not, where they need to improve. Doing that consistently, and I say monthly as a minimum, can really help build your team members up. Now, that's one-to-one setting. Other settings, like other systems I like to put into businesses, are weekly or bi-weekly training sessions with their team members. So if we're talking trades businesses, it may be that they have an office team, or they have a home service technician team, or they have a construction project team. Those are 3 different areas of training that you could be doing in your organization. And doing that weekly or doing that bi-weekly allows you to be proactive and training them up and getting ahead of those problems that you're facing now. Because most business owners out there are very reactive. They're just, whatever's coming at them, they're just reacting to everything instead of getting ahead of it and having a system in place that's proactive to say, every week I'm going to sit down with our team and let's train them up and make sure they're equipped to do their job well.
What a concept, being proactive instead of reactive.
Yeah.
I would say that most home service. Oh, go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say, I mean, it's easier said than done. I want the audience to realize that there's always going to be fires to put out in our business. There really is, no matter what business you're in. But the difference is anything worth doing is worth prioritizing. So if you're saying, hey, Dan, I want a different business. I want freedom from this. I want independent thinkers and leaders. If you wake up tomorrow after listening to the podcast and you go about everything the same way, you're going to get the same results. Right. So taking one thing away from our podcast today and implementing it is better than trying to take 10 things away and really getting no traction moving forward in their business.
Right. I was going to say most home service business owners probably struggle with the thought that I have to train them. I'm not a teacher. I don't have those skills. How do I train my team when I don't know how to do that? Where do I start?
That's a great question. And that's definitely something I hear often from people. I don't do it because I have this, I don't know how to do it, or I'm insecure. I don't want to get in front of the room and talk to people. The first thing is people want a leader that's real, not one that's always right. So the thought of trying to be, perfect for your team, get that out of the way, because nobody wants to follow that leader. They want somebody who's nervous and who's willing to get out of their comfort zone and stand up in front of the room and say, you know what, I don't know what I'm doing, but we're going to figure this out because I do want to give y'all training and knowledge and help you improve. And so the first thing is anytime we start training our team members, the main thing we don't want to do is we don't want to turn this into a 1-hour bitch session about how they're doing all these things wrong. No. We want our team to walk away feeling like, okay, this is a great place to work and we are doing some things right. So usually the structure I encourage people to do whenever they start having their weekly training meetings is to, the first half of the session, they can talk about some of the needs for improvement, the things we need to tighten up. But the second half of the session is just take one training topic and focus on one training topic every time you meet. And because once again, if we try to cram in 10 different new things, nobody, they're not going to take anything away. But if we just work on one new thing every week or bi-weekly, that'll be great. And there's so many different areas to work on. I mean, you can talk about technical stuff. You can talk about safety things. You can talk about sales training. Or you could even bring a vendor in every once in a while. I encourage them to bring a outside vendor in once a quarter to help kind of supplement what they're doing in the training.
So there's lots of information out there. And unfortunately, we live in an era where you can Google just about any topic and have something to help you prepare for what you want to talk to your team about. Because I hear it all the time. It's like, I don't know what to say. How do I get started? What do I say? So it sounds like that your team is going to appreciate your vulnerability more than anything. The fact that you're willing to try. And I think just even that small step, you'll start seeing a positive reaction amongst your team. Morale will move up. They'll start taking some ownership of their positions and their projects that they're working on. And over time, then those types of good behaviors, if they're rewarded, continue to help and continue to get better and better and better.
That's very true. Yeah. And when I'm coaching a client and they never had a weekly meeting, the first thing I do is just have them have a weekly meeting. Like I try to take all the pressure off of, what do you say? How do you structure? It's like, just prove to me that you can have a weekly meeting. Once we do that, and then we start to layer on and make it better and make it better. Another good, when it comes to being proactive and tracking results in a company, a lot of companies I work with, I like having them use a whiteboard. With all the technology we have today, it's easy to track a lot of key performance indicators on your computer. But having a simple whiteboard in your office where maybe you're tracking your weekly revenue, you're tracking how many service calls or how many jobs you're working per week. Even for the construction people, how many jobs do we have in the bid pipeline? Like tracking simple KPIs like that will make great topics for meetings, because if you're tracking that every week, let's just say every Monday you're sitting down and you're writing the results from the previous week, then when you sit down with your team members, you know where the area of improvement is needed every week, instead of letting it go on and on and on and waiting for the end of month P&L coming in and you realize, wow, I'm really inconsistent in this area. I need to go back and train my team on that. We're trying to be a little more proactive on a weekly basis.
I love the whiteboard idea. Plus, it sits out there and they can see it.
Exactly.
It's not on just the boss's computer. It's out there where they can see it. They can see the numbers going up or going down. I love when my clients will track a few KPIs, because we all know that if something's getting measured, it will do better. It's amazing how that works. When your team knows we're measuring this, whatever this might be, it will start to improve.
Very true. What gets measured gets managed, and you will see the glaring, obvious area for improvement.
Right.
And so, yeah, that'll be good.
What do you do when you have a team member who says, you've never measured this stuff before? Are you just checking up on me? Because I know that's got to happen out there. I've encountered it my own business.
It does so much. It does so much. Yeah, a lot of times our team members think that we're tracking things only so we can fire them. And it is a culture shift. If we've never tracked anything before and we've kind of let everything go, there is going to be a little bit of resistance to it. And so there's one of two ways that we can approach this. And our attitude and our energy that we put off is really going to be a determining factor of this. One is we're doing this so we can coach them to better performance, so we can help them be the best that they can be. Because remember, helping them be a better leader is not helping them be a better manager. Leadership is influence. Leadership is who they are as a person. And so if I can coach them up and help them be proactive, manage their time well, make decisions, own decisions, and I can back them up even when they're making the wrong decision, well, that's going to carry over into their personal life too. They're going to be better husbands and wives, and be better fathers and mothers, and be better friends and community members. And so it's really a great opportunity. But on the flip side, sometimes when it's kind of cast as more of like, oh, you better do this or else, it becomes, you're only doing this to fire me. And now it becomes a negative deal. So I really like to see it as, these KPIs that we're tracking, these are coaching KPIs to help us all become better.
I like that positive spin on it, because I've heard those comments from their employees as I'm working with a home service business, and turning that into a positive wording. We're doing this so as a company, we can all grow. We can become better as individuals. It changes the mindset, but sometimes it takes a while for that mindset to change on the employee side as well as the employer side. If you've come at your team with, you never do anything right. We have all these callbacks. We're constantly out there battling every single job that we do. Well, that's going to take some positive mindset change from the owner's position before we can begin to start meeting with our team and start trying to help change their mindset to see that now we're measuring things is a good thing.
It is. And I want everybody to realize, like, when it comes to building trust with your team, our reputation precedes us. And so what I mean is, so in my career as a plumbing business owner, um, I remember I would go to these coaching conferences, and I would go like once a quarter, and I would surround myself with all these other best practice companies, and I would come back with just so much great information, like, oh, there's the 10 different things we need to implement moving forward. And this was me as a young business owner. I didn't know better. And what would happen is I would bring 10 new ideas, and I would try to implement those things, and they would only last a week or two. What was I teaching my team at that point?
Oh yeah,
See,
teaching
I
them,
was
yeah.
I was teaching my team that all this stuff is fleeting. It's not really sticking. So what, in their minds, subconsciously, they're saying, oh, just give Dan 2 weeks. He's going to forget about this. There's no reason to get out of my comfort zone and change. And so I was actually breeding a lack of trust in my organization versus knowing that I was doing that and realizing that less is more. I may have 10 new ideas I want to implement, but just focusing on one right now and making sure it not only can be implemented, but somebody can follow through with ensuring it continues to happen. That's what's most important, because having that reputation of things actually taking root and following through, your team's more likely to buy into it. And what I described for you, Diane, is really the typical business entrepreneur. Like, God wired us to be visionaries for a reason. And that's also why he encourages us to have somebody in our organization that's kind of like our right hand person who can help us channel that vision and implement those ideas at the right time in our business. I actually do that a lot as a business coach, because there's a lot of entrepreneurs out there who don't have a spouse or don't have a general manager. And so I come in and kind of fit that interim general manager where I can help them channel their vision and their goals and help them implement in the right timing based on where they're at in the organization. So it is very important. I'm sure that's probably going to resonate with a few people listening out there. There's nothing wrong with you. It's just the way God wired you. It's just realizing that by doing that and by being all over the place, all you're doing is breeding a lack of trust, which means your team members are going to be less likely to buy into the new ideas you have. So if I go out there today and say, all right, team, listen to this awesome podcast. Tomorrow, we're going to start having a weekly meeting, and we're going to start tracking these KPIs on the whiteboard, and I do it for 2 weeks and I stop. Then once again, I just said, hey, look, don't listen to Dan. He just has these fleeting ideas, versus if I did it consistently. And that's why I always say, it's like, if you want to do it weekly, but you could really only commit to biweekly, or you could really only commit to monthly, I would rather you do it less consistently than do it more inconsistently.
Well, you were describing yourself as a young business owner. I was trying not to laugh because that was me too. I'd come back with like my notebook with all these notes and all this wonderful stuff we were going to do. And 9 times out of 10, we might accomplish one thing, but we certainly didn't accomplish the 9 or 10 or 12 or whatever you came back with ideas on. And so I was trying not to laugh because I thought, oh yeah, I've been there, done that. My poor team has been overwhelmed in the early years. I've learned now that I only come back and share one idea with them and keep the others in a place where I can, when I'm ready to, I go back and consult my notes and okay, we're ready to take on something else. But the fire hose doesn't work well for your team, especially when you don't follow through. And when you try to implement 10, you can't follow through. There's not enough bandwidth. You're already busy. So yeah,
that's very true.
We're all wired the same, whether you're a plumber, whether you're, an accountant, business coach, we're all wired the same.
Yeah.
That, we come back all fired up and they're like, oh no, here they go. They're coming back from a conference.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's true.
Well, our team is our biggest asset. They're our most important asset in our business.
Mm-hmm.
And I think sometimes we forget that. We look at our assets and we immediately think our depreciation schedule. Look at all the trucks, look at all the vans I've got. Those are my assets. Or we think our customer list. I got such and such a customer list, and I got some big names on that customer list. But we forget that our team is our most important asset, because without our team, we wouldn't be able to do what we do unless you're a
Mhm.
really small, tiny little business. You couldn't do what you do without a team. And how important it is to have that implementer person coming
Mhm.
along beside you, and then have your worker bees who are out there actually getting those jobs done. I always tell my team that it's like a hand, and I'm the palm of the hand, but you guys are the different fingers, and you each have a unique role. Take your hand without a thumb, and it's really hard to pick things up. Take your
Mhm.
hand without various fingers, and there's certain things that it's really hard to do because we just use our fingers all day long. We don't realize it. But you have a problem where somebody gets a finger cut off or something like that. Now they got to retrain themselves how to do something. So a team is like a hand. We need all of it. And we need that wrist to be able to flex and bend. We need it all to be able to have a business that's running on all cylinders. And I think it's a good reminder. I know all of us, I'm sure we know this, but this is a good reminder of how important that team is and how important our role is as a leader.
Mhm. Yeah, that's very true. That's very true. And a lot of the pain points we see when it comes to different team members is just not knowing what position or not knowing who reports to who. Or and as we grow a business, we there's no there's no previous plan put in place, so everything is based on emotion. you know Bob's not really doing a good job here, so I really like Bob, so I'm going to create a position for Bob over here because I don't want to fire Bob. And then when Bob finally quits, that position actually never existed. You just wasted money in that position. We've all done those things,
Yeah.
and so that's why I love to sit down with business owners and make a plan. Hey, what does the next 3 years look like? But if we even want to get smaller, like what does this year look like? And sitting down and drawing a simple organizational chart that reflects the revenue goal that you want to hit. It really takes the people out of the plan and really focuses on the organization and the structure and the positions needed. Then at that point, that's a good template for you to write your position agreements, and then you can take the people and place them in those positions. And that is so key because it not only keeps you from making those emotional decisions and those mistakes and really creating that inefficiency in your growth, but it also gives your team so much clarity. And the other cool thing is when I sit down and help business owners create a 3 year organizational chart for the growth they want to have in their organization, and then I encourage them to put it up on the wall and show their team and make like a permanent 3 year sign for that growth. Man, it just drums up such great conversation because now whatever was in your head is out of your head, and your team members can say, "Hey, Dan, how do I get to that position? I really want to earn that position." And now you're being forced to have that conversation, whether you know how to get them there or not. But it also shows people that you're bringing in potential new hires that you have a plan, and you will land more talented leaders in your business based off them seeing growth potential for their career in your organization.
Something I'd like to add to what you were just saying, if you're using the profit first methodology in your
Mhm.
business, this is a great account to have, is a future hiring account. And in your future hiring account, you can practice making their salary. Can I really legitimately afford to make that salary before I make that hire? And so a lot of times I'll have my clients in my coaching group practicing for 6 months or so. If you can make that salary consistently for 6 months, yes, you're ready to hire that person. Because I think oftentimes they get excited about the org chart, they get excited about this next new hire, ready, fire, aim, and they've hired somebody. Oh my goodness, now I'm on the hook for this salary plus all these benefits and all this stuff. Now what am I going to do? Because we did ready, fire, aim instead of having a plan and then working that plan. So I just like to add that piece in to your chart and your planning.
Yeah, and that is why it's important find you a coach that you trust and hiring that person and trusting that person, because at the end of the day, it's like you almost have to pay to play. And what I mean is if you're not investing any money into working on your business, you're always going to be in your business. You are naturally, like you're always going to be in the day to days. But if you're listening and like you really, really want something different for your business, you really want to create this self-operating, profitable, scalable business, finding somebody you trust, like Diane, joining your group, finding Bill for the Trades or any other coach that you know out there who's been there and done that you can trust. It's just, man, it makes such a big difference. I was joking with one of my clients the other day because an objection I get often is, I can't really afford it, or I don't really have the time for coaching right now. And my response to that objection now is hiring a coach is kind of like having a kid. Like you're never going to have enough money for it, and it's never going to be the right time. You just eventually got to do it.
Right.
And I always tell my people that are coming into the Bill for Trades, I say, do what I'm going to teach you and prove to me that it's not going to work. And if it doesn't work, I'll give you 100% of your money back.
Always.
Because I know that just the effort they put into it is going to make a huge difference in their business. So I don't want to make this a sales pitch, but I just overall want to just cast that vision for people. If you haven't hired you a coach or joined an organization that you can help, become a better business owner, I really just encourage you to do that, because it's what changed my life. 10 years into running my plumbing business, when I hired my first coach, the second 10 years running that plumbing business was tremendous growth, and all the things I didn't know what I didn't know. And once I hired my first coach, I never looked back.
And I will echo that as well. The first 10 to 12 years of having my business, I struggled. I didn't know. I didn't know how to lead. I didn't know how to price. I didn't know how to do any of that stuff. But once I found my first coach and they started helping me grow, and then amazing thing happens, I outgrew that coach and then had to go find a different coach. So we have coaches for different aspects. I coach with 3 or 4 different people now, because they're in different parts of my business, helping me grow and learn and become a better leader. And something I would say, if you're in the mode where you're looking for a coach, make sure your coach is being coached.
Mm-hmm.
Because you want to always have that flow of fresh ideas coming down, that you're not just working with somebody who's doing the same old year after year after year, but that they're growing right along with you. And you're growing, and then you're sharing that information with your team. And pretty soon you have an amazing team who's taken ownership of the jobs you've given them. They've taken ownership in your company, and now you're able to start stepping away. And you're getting that freedom that we all went into business for. We wanted the freedom. We wanted to own our time. We didn't realize we were going to work harder than we've ever worked in our lives, as when you're owning a business. But eventually you can get that freedom, because you've got a team that you can trust, and a team that can make money even when you're not there, right there in front of them. I think that's one of our ultimate goals as a business owner, is to get there.
Yeah, that's good. That's really good. And people are a product of our leadership. So if leadership is influence, the frustrations you have in your business are usually a reflection of how you're leading yourself. And so biggest example of that is time management. Man, I'm so frustrated because my team member is all over the place and they're very inefficient. And then you look in the mirror and you realize, I'm all over the place. I'm very inefficient. And so until we can reflect on that and realize that growth in your business starts with growth in yourself. So the normal reaction to that is, I'm going to go fix this person. When the response should be, I need to fix myself, so that way my influence fixes my people.
Right.
Because when they see you growing, because you have a coach and because you're learning these things, they're naturally going to grow around you. So until you get to that point where you're humble and willing to work on yourself, you're going to have a hard time, because you're always going to be trying to fix people. And then people are always going to be dependent on you to fix people. Once again, you're kind of getting back to that dependency of, hey, fix me over here, instead of you fixing yourself and realizing that the way that you're communicating is creating that dependency.
Right.
And man, I hope that's resonating with people, because it makes sense in my mind, and sometimes when I communicate it, it may or may not make sense. But I just hope that's encouraging for people. Like, once again, you're not doing, like, you're not weird. You're totally normal. Every business owner in the history of business does the same thing until they learn otherwise.
And one of the things I'd like to bring in with all of this, as when we have a team that's not operating at peak efficiency and peak capacity, we're
Mhm.
actually have big profit leak in our business. Since this is the profitable home services podcast, we got to get the
That's
word
true.
profit in there.
We did.
And I'm always telling my coaching clients as well as my accounting clients that it's these kind of profit leaks are not sitting out there going, with the neon sign going, find me, find me, find me. They're not blaring at you. There's no big gong going off. There's no bells or whistles. They're silently just leaking profits out of your business. And our team is an area that there's a lot of profit leaks, or has the potential for a lot of profit leaks. So as we
Mhm.
can grow as leaders and then help to grow our team through training and coaching, we
Mhm.
start keeping more of our bottom line profits, just focusing on our teams. I've watched my clients over the years increase bottom line profits from maybe 5 or 6% where they were, upwards of 15-20% just by looking in that area and becoming a better leader and then growing up their team.
Mhm.
And they don't have to do more top line sales to get that. They just have to be a better leader and work with their team. And they always look at me and going, Diane, you're crazy. When I'll tell them that up front, but it's true. We've done it time after time with finding that hidden, quiet, silent profit leak that can
Mhm.
be in your team and in yourself, in your own inefficiency as well as your team. And so we love to find those little hidden profit leaks. And with that, Dan, I have a question. Normally I tell my guests this up front when we're first talking, but I forgot to tell you this. So I'm going
That's
to
all right.
spring it on you and see how you do with it.
Okay.
I always wrap up each of my podcast interviews with the question is, what's a unique profit leak that you see as you're working with these plumbers and other home service businesses? I'm sure there's
Well,
something you've got out there.
yeah, see, you use the word unique, and I don't know.
I know.
Yeah, I don't know if this is if what I'm going to say is going to be unique. All right. So I think that when it comes, kind of staying on because there's a lot, when you look at a P&L for the first time, you see profit leaks and
Oh, yeah.
material and labor and subcontractors and so on and so forth. I think that's pretty normal. When I think of unique and kind of related to our topic today, people naturally take the path of least resistance. So they're always looking for what can they get away with.
Ooh, good
And
one.
when you think about that, that is definitely a profit leak. And so I think that life is all about maintenance. I think that business is all about maintenance. And so when I say maintenance, we're going back to that consistent system you put in place to ensure that you're checking in and not only trusting, but you're verifying that your team members are doing their position agreement, that whatever they agreed upon, they're actually doing it. There's so many times where business owners are like, yeah, that person's doing a really good job. I trust them. And the next thing you know, they catch them doing next to nothing because they haven't really been managed. They haven't really been checked up on in a while. And I think there's very few like driven people in the organization where they're naturally going to do more without being managed. There are those people, and a lot of them are business owners for a reason, but most people are looking for path of least resistance. So what they do is they come into an organization and they look around and they say, oh, you know, Betty over there is really getting away with doing very little, and I'm doing a whole lot. So over time, I'm actually going to go down to her level and do as little as possible
Wow.
because Betty has set the standard in the organization. Versus if you have a system where you're sitting down with your team members minimum one time a month, if not more frequent, at that point, you are verifying that things are getting done, you're coaching them up, and you're making sure that they are performing at a higher level. Because once again, anything that gets measured gets managed. And if we're turning a blind eye to measuring things in our business like KPIs, then we're going to see a profit leak in our business for sure.
So I'm going to pull up my proud to be profitable bucket, and we're going to drop some money in, because now we've just closed another hidden profit leak. Thank you for sharing that one with me. That is not one that has been shared so far. And that's why I use the term unique, because otherwise I tend to get the same ones, quite often. And we are looking for different areas so that these listeners can be looking in their own business and going, oh, do I have the path of least resistance? Do I have apathy going on in my own team? And if so, I better start addressing that, because that's a silent profit leak. And those silent leaks can kill your business. You get enough of them out there and they will kill your business. And we don't want that happening. We want all of our businesses to be profitable and successful, and to have great teams, and teams that are happy to work for these small businesses, as we are the backbone of the U.S. So Dan, any final thoughts you want to share with our listeners?
No, Diane, I think I'm good there. If anybody wants to check out Built for the Trades, we have some good free tools at builtforthetrades.com, or we have a great YouTube channel and podcasts at Built for the Trades. You can find us on YouTube or any podcast platform. And just kind of wrapping it all up, I know we went pretty deep in just like helping lead and manage people better, and improve the way that you communicate as a leader. And I just want to reiterate that we all kind of have the same problems in any small business, and until you start learning these things and applying these things and realizing that people are a product of how you've led and communicated with them and so on and so forth, you really can't change anything. So thank you for having me on the show. I'm going to stop rambling.
And I'm going to say, for anybody who's listening, it's not too late. Even if you've had a business for 20 or 30 or 40 years, it's not too late. You can start today and start changing yourself so that you can become the leader that they deserve. It's not too late. You don't have to be a brand new business owner or a fairly new business owner to be able to implement what we've talked about today. Today is the first day. Let's start with this, and let's pick one item that Dan and I have been talking about, and let's implement this in your business. And then come back and listen to this particular episode again so you can grab another idea and then start sharing that with your team. So thank you again, Dan. It's been a pleasure having you on our program today. And just want to remind all of our listeners, it's not how much you make, it's how much you keep. Everybody gets so excited over top line revenue. Woohoo, I've hit 1 million, I've hit 20 million, I've hit whatever. But they forget about that bottom line profit. And I've seen businesses at 1 million that are more profitable than those at 20 million. And that's a sad state of affairs. So it's all about how much you keep. Stay tuned as we continue to explore these hidden profit leaks. And we're looking forward to catching you on a future episode. Thanks again for joining us today.